Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to A Morning with the Lord. It's a perfect morning because it's Sunday, the Lord's Day. The date is the 31st of the 10th, 2021. And I just want to apologise if my voice doesn't sound all that appealing today. I spent the day in bed yesterday, crook as a dog. I think I might have eaten some bad leftovers, or who knows. Feeling a lot better today, but the voice might be a bit scratchy. Now, I've got a few stories lined up for you here. Unfortunately, not a great deal of happy stories I see floating the web. If I scroll down to the bottom here, that's something that frustrates me. I type in top news stories and you get links to ads, but down the bottom you get the trending stories from Bing. I don't know, I think you should at least there should at least be a list better than that. But, just reading through the Bing list here, it's Queensland to reopen borders, it's not too bad. Star gets off socials, no one cares. China passes a new law, which we will look at. 64 new cases recorded, I imagine that's COVID related. Iran issues a warrant. There's a warning of a new pig virus. Awesome, great news, what we all wanted to hear. And if anyone remembers, swine flu is just another one of those ones another flu strain. We've had troubles with it before. But yeah, these things mutate every day or year, so I imagine that would happen often. But I'm going to start off today just doing a quick recap on a story that we have been covering in regards to FriendlyJordies and his arrest by the Fixated Persons Unit. I've got a clip brought up here which is taken from the live stream of Legislative Council budget estimates 2020 to 2021 and supplementary hearing police and emergency services on the 29th of October 2021. I don't have a link to the actual full broadcast. This is just a clip that has been put up by FriendlyJordies regarding his stuff, and I imagine he took out the budget stuff. But it's very interesting. We're going to have a quick discussion about it, but first off, I'm just going to play you a little clip from the start of this hearing. So have a listen.
Last estimates on the 1st of September, I asked some questions of Deputy Commissioner Hudson and Assistant Commissioner Walton about the Fixated Persons Unit and its deployment against Mr. Christo Lanka, the producer of the FriendlyJordies program. And I did ask for the charter or the standard operating procedures for the Fixated Persons Unit to be provided on notice. While we did get on notice a descriptor of how the system works, we didn't get a copy of the standard operating procedures or the charter of the unit, if I can put it that way. Was that an oversight, or are you not going to provide that to the committee?
I'll take that question on notice, and if it was an oversight, we'll certainly make sure that we get it to you.
Thanks. And I understand that some things may be sensitive in terms of police operations, but the DPP's prosecution guidelines are public documents, and I would have thought that
Well, I'm not responsible for the DPP, so...
No, but I would have thought that some of these things would be public. Does the Commissioner have anything to add?
Oh, look, Mr. Searle, we package up and we send off to government. What gets provided is out of my hands. So, and I'm not engaged in the process once I work out the door in terms of what is finally provided or not.
No, but so you didn't make any policy decision about not providing the committee?
No, but nor I have on any issues since I've been coming here.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So I'll look forward to that on notice. In relation to how the matter involving Mr. Lanka unfolded, I asked again some questions on notice. And on notice, you've provided that on the 2nd of December, an investigation by the Fixated Persons Unit was established by a complaint.
Yep.
The complaint originally came from the Department of Premier and Cabinet, is that correct?
I'm not involved in any operational matters.
Okay, well, I'm happy to ask the Police Commissioner, Mr Walton.
I would defer to Mr Walton just
Mr. Walton?
to save me taking questions on notice.
I think that'd be good. Mr Walton, was it a complaint from the Department of Premier and Cabinet that initiated this matter?
Yes, Mark Wall entering. Yes, as outlined on the 2nd of December, that was the initial complaint that went to the Sydney City Police Area Command.
Now, in the answer provided on notice, it then says the matter was referred to the Anti-Terrorism and Intelligence Group, where it's assessed and allocated to the Fixated Persons Unit. Now, just to be clear, did the Fixated Persons Unit then carry out its own assessment?
No, the Terrorism Investigation Unit carries out the assessment of the available information and subsequently takes the full investigation to the unit and then conducts a normal investigation, gathers evidence, assesses that evidence and determines whether action is appropriate.
Right. Well, in relation to that assessment or the operation carried out by the Fixated Persons Unit, Deputy Commissioner Hudson said on the last occasion, at page 26 of the transcript, and I quote, "I do not think appropriate processes were followed in that assessment," unquote. He was there referring to the operation of the Fixated Persons Unit itself. So in terms of the processes adopted by the unit, can you tell us what were the procedures that should have been followed and what in fact unfolded?
So there's a timeline in relation to this to provide some clarity.
Okay, I'm going to stop that there because I think it might, the person on the phone might be very hard to hear through my mic. But, you know, it's a bit, I strongly suggest you watch the video that FriendlyJordies put up, because they later on go to say that the Fixated Persons Unit didn't even have an arrest warrant. They were working under common law, some type of common law ability to do that. And the Fixated Persons Unit is, as I understand, our anti-terrorist sort of unit. Now, this, I would really like to, the bloke asking the questions there, I'm not sure who that is. I'll have to go back and have a closer look. It could be, you know, the Labor MLC or the Greens MLC. I'm not 100% sure, but I would love to give that guy a round of applause, because he goes through pretty much grilling, or not grilling, but, you know, pointing out how absolutely ridiculous this all was and how mistakenly it was carried out. Like he said, FriendlyJordies is a fairly high profile YouTuber, at least in Australian standards, and to so publicly arrest him without so much as evidence or a warrant, they go on to list or to say that, you know, the main concern was the mental health of the Deputy Premier because of such attacks on his person. You know, there was no physical threats or anything, no thought of real harm. It was only in a verbal nature. And the person asking the questions goes on to state how absolutely ridiculous that is, and, you know, how it probably shouldn't have ever even got to that. And the people answering the questions, you know, will say that they had no real idea what was going on. It was more handled, you know, by their deputies, not them. But they do go on to fervently sort of defend the arrest, in sense that, and, you know, they're really trying to push Parliament to put down laws regarding Australia, like, and what can be said. You know, they weren't able to take down any of FriendlyJordies' videos, but they do want to. They do see it as a problem, and they think it needs to be something that's more clearly defined, in law, so they can make these arrests. But they also go on to say that a psychological evaluation should be done to assure that there is any real harm being done to the person. And I would like to sort of argue, if a person is undergoing such psychological distress from being such a public figure, then perhaps they weren't right for the job in the first place. I don't want to, you get introverts that would definitely be beneficial in Parliament. But to elect that person to the head of the Parliament to be, or deputy head, I don't think to be the best idea. I've said many times that, this is some troubling stuff when it comes to, people like FriendlyJordies and myself trying to put content out there, because, the last thing you want is to be arrested for anything. And imagine if they go back and, listen to my one yesterday where I, tell Scott Morrison to get fucked numerous times. They could take that personally. I spoke in an aggressive tone, but I'd like to say, I didn't mean that overly personally. I'm just talking about policy. I'm not talking about people. I don't know what anyone's like at home. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You can only make theories. But, that's part of the problem as well. When you've got a bunch of stuff going on and the government giving out no information, and then arresting people without warrants, I think we have cause to complain, cause to bring that up. And like I've said before, human nature, wins overall. The more, there are people, with less restraint than even I. No doubt they're going to say some inappropriate stuff. I mean, we all do. Yeah, like I said, I will leave a link to this, and I strongly urge that anyone give it a listen, because it is very interesting just to hear the thought process that goes through this sort of thing. Okay, I've got some more stories queued up here. We're going to move on. I just wanted to share that little bit of information for anyone interested. But got a few stories up here. One about Iran issuing a warrant to Trump, and annoyingly enough, these, a couple of these links don't even go to the news story. They just go to another search page. We'll go sbs.com. But yeah, Iran issuing a warrant for Donald Trump and asks Interpol to detain him. News about koalas. The title of the story says koalas extinct in New South Wales ? So I wonder how that story's going to go. But I want to start off on a serious note. Well, all these stories are kind of serious, but I want to talk about China's new border laws and concerns about India and Afghanistan. I haven't had a proper look through this yet, but there's a little video from Guardian TV. It's at tv.guardian.ng. And this is in relation, as it says, to border disputes with India and China. Now, this is something I've been wanting to keep my eye on since I heard about it, because I said to a friend of mine in just general conversation, once America pulled out of, was it Iraq they were in, Afghanistan? When America and all of us pulled out troops in the last month or two, when you take a look at the map, that sort of stuff is right on the border with India and China as well, and it's kind of worrying. I half almost think, you know, America got the hell out of there because China's coming in. And if China takes that little section of land, man, that is an extreme strategical bonus for them. And I'm really worried about India. I mean, India, I think, has the second largest army in the world when it comes to people. Both of them have nuclear power. And, you know, one, I would hate to see war start. And two, if India gets taken out, like, I would really like to be allies with India, simply because we have been for so long. We have a very strong Indian population here in Australia, and have done since the beginning, I'm pretty sure. You know, it was Indians and part of the Arabic, I think, that they got to come in and build the railroads and whatnot through the deserts. You know, we've had Indians and that here for a long time. They are part of Australia, and part that I like. I would like to keep, you know, that going well. But if India and China, like, my fear, I'm not saying this is going to happen or there is reports of this, but if India and China get into a scuffle and for some reason India, you know, loses and becomes a pawn of China, we're already fighting an uphill battle if anything starts with China, let alone China and India. We'd be bloody screwed. Now let's play this video here and just see what's going on the border.
High in the Karakoram Ranges, jagged cliffs soar above the Galwan Valley. These satellite images show the disputed region where Indian and Chinese troops clashed a year ago. Soldiers confronted each other, then attacked with rocks and clubs in what was their first fatal confrontation since 1975. The clash killed 20 Indian soldiers, while the Chinese government claimed only 4 of theirs were killed. But it was the most serious face-off between the two nuclear-armed neighbours in nearly half a century, and both sides blamed each other. The entire country is hurt and angry at the steps taken by China at the line of actual control, the border. The clashes triggered an ongoing wave of anti-China sentiment in India and a ban on an array of Chinese apps, including TikTok and WeChat. But China said it was merely defending its territorial integrity. Shockingly, on June 15th, Indian troops seriously violated the bilateral consensus and crossed the border line twice, engaging in illegal activities and provoking and attacking Chinese personnel, resulting in serious physical confrontation between border forces on the two sides. China and India have a history of face-offs along this yellow line, known as the line of actual control. It's not a hard border, since China and India have never actually agreed on where it should lie. But the ongoing competition between them to build infrastructure along it continues to heighten tensions. The two militaries agreed in February to pull back from the mountains around the contested Pangong Lake, but China has so far refused to withdraw from the other areas it has occupied, and India's Ministry of External Affairs says the process of disengagement remains unfinished.
Troubling stuff there. Border disputes. Like I said, the first conflict which led to harm since the 70s. Okay, there's no article here, it was just that video apparently. But definitely something to keep the eye on as it unfolds. Okay, let's go to Iran issuing the warrant for Donald Trump. Says here, Iran has asked Interpol to help detain US President Donald Trump over a drone strike that killed a top Iranian general in Baghdad, a local prosecutor says. And we all remember this, I'm pretty sure. Trump boasted about it pretty highly, I think. And I've had a mate in the military, and I've spoken to a couple of people, and like they all say, Iran is where a lot of our focus is and should be, because they are the most aggressive one that we have. I mean, we can talk about tensions with other countries all we want, but we're actually been fighting in this one. But let's continue to read here. Iran has issued an arrest warrant and asked Interpol to help detain US President Donald Trump. Oh, they just repeated the first paragraph. While Mr. Trump faces no danger of arrest, the charges underscore the heightened tensions between Iran and the United States since Mr. Trump unilaterally withdrew America from Tehran's nuclear deal with world powers. Tehran prosecutor Ali Al-Qassimeh, spelled Alqasimehr, said Trump and more than 30 others whom Iran accuses of involvement in the 3rd of January strike that killed General Qasem Soleimani, my apologies, Soleimani, in Baghdad, face murder and terrorism charges, the state-run IRNA news agency reported on Monday. Al-Qassimeh did not identify anyone else sought other than Mr. Trump, but stressed that Iran would continue to pursue his prosecution even after his presidency ends. His presidency ended ages ago. Why the bloody hell? Anyway, Interpol, based in Lyon, France, did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Al-Qassimeh also was quoted as saying that Iran requested a red notice be put out for Mr. Trump and the others, which represents the highest level arrest request issued by Interpol. Local authorities end up making the arrests on behalf of the country that requests it. The notice cannot force countries to arrest or extradite suspects, but can put government leaders on the spot and limit suspects' travel. So that's Interpol's highest level thing, and they can't make arrests, can't force anyone to make arrests, but it just puts people in the red light. That doesn't seem like a whole lot of power, if you ask me. But then international, what's that word they give diplomats? Diplomatic immunity, I guess. After receiving a request, Interpol meets by committee and discusses whether or not to share the information with its member states. Interpol has no requirement for making any of the notice public, though some do get published on its website. It is almost certain Interpol would not grant Iran's request, as its guideline for notice forbids it from undertaking any intervention or activities of a political nature. The US killed Mr. Soleimani, who oversaw the Revolutionary Guard's Expedition Quds force, and others in the January strike near Baghdad International Airport. It comes after months of incidents raising tensions between two countries and ultimately saw Iran retaliate with a ballistic missile strike targeting American troops in Iraq. Okay, why the bloody hell is this story even up? Happened fucking months ago. This is seriously fishing for some stories now. They're not getting much clicks. We've got to throw Trump back in there. Fucking Trump. Remember that cunt? Yeah, he was bad, eh? Let's talk about him again. Absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, what are you going to do? So, we go on to the next one. Koalas in extinction. And we have a heap of links here. It didn't go to a bloody story either. But top here, eco.net.au. On your Bing, nailed it. Alright, there's a couple of stories regarding to koalas. As I said, the link I clicked on was koalas extinct in New South Wales ? And the question mark was definitely warranted because it just led you to a bunch of fucking links just about koalas. Holy shit. That's an actually bloody huge article. Well, not that huge, but man, they're writing a bit about this. Alright, let's just go over a couple of paragraphs and see if there's anything of interest or note. It says, the impact of the Koala SEPP, State Environment Planning Policy, on land clearing under forestry and private native forestry agreements has continued to be a major concern to many councils in New South Wales. The new SEPP has been roundly criticised for its failure to ensure that koalas and other native species in New South Wales are adequately protected from habitat destruction and extinction. In April this year, Tweed Shire Council wrote to Tweed MP Mr Jeff Provost of the Nationals, Lismore MP Janelle Saffin, Labor, and the Minister for Planning and Public Spaces, the Honourable Rob Stokes, to address potential issues with the koala SEPP. Of particular concern was the failure of the SEPP to protect hinterland koalas and the decoupling of the local land services and PNF agreements. At the March meeting, Tweed Mayor Chris Cherry pointed out that the koala SEPP would remove the council's ability to manage private native forestry and that there is a high likelihood it will lead to pre-emptive clearing by developers who were seeking to develop currently forested areas in the future. Mayor Cherry also emphasised that connectivity to the region's national parks and other areas was vital for healthy koala populations in the future. Oh my god, I just coughed right in there, I'm very sorry. But yeah, okay. One, I'm really sick of this whole, like, clearing of fucking everything. Like, I'm for work. I get we gotta work. But you look at Australia, right? Mostly desert. Our only green areas are around the edges, and we decide to build everything on those fucking green areas. Leave it the hell alone before we run out of anything. Move a little bit more inland. It's that bloody simple. And I mean, I know we got plenty of land inland as well. You know, there's plenty of infrastructure around. But, oh, not a great deal, but, you know. Like, this whole having to cut into national parks, you know, I find it really surprising, you know. That I think it's a true testament as well to just how shit, you know, my generation is. Or, you know, the generation after. Because we're not bloody... We don't care about this stuff so much. There's so much more to care about. This stuff gets thrown under the radar. I mean, I hear people talking more about, you know, how disappointed they were in The Incredibles 2 than I ever hear someone talking about, you know, well, nature and this sort of thing. And like here in Australia, it is still an argumentative topic to bring up. You're either for work or you're not. And nothing is cut into two lines like that. It frustrates me. Well, to be completely honest, I was expecting a little bit more out of those stories. That was quite a weak effort. Quickly just have a peruse through the news here on YouTube, see if we got any videos of anything of note. Victoria recording new cases. Victorian authorities provide a COVID update. New South Wales Corona update. And what can Australia learn from Portugal's COVID normal life? Let's give that a go. Let's see what's happening in Portugal. Why not?
Well, Portugal is leading the COVID vaccine charge in Europe. Almost 89% of the population has had the first dose, and yet the virus continues to stubbornly circulate.
Associate Professor Sanjaya Senanayake joins us now to discuss what Australia can learn from the situation. Good to see you, Sanjaya. What does living with the virus look like in Portugal?
Right, good morning, Richard. Yes, so living with the virus is pretty good, actually. But interestingly, the health minister said life currently is not the same as it was before the virus. So it is different. But they have opened up. Restaurants don't have a cap on the number of people who can dine. Nightclubs, bars have opened up. You don't have to wear masks outdoors, but you still have to wear masks indoors. So it's transitioned really from people following instructions to more a sense of personal responsibility.
So some restrictions still in place. Is that likely to change anytime soon, do you think?
No, look, I haven't heard of that happening. And the other thing as well with Portugal and the Northern Hemisphere in general is they're heading towards winter. And this virus seems to act more aggressively in winter. So I think there's a lot of caution there as well.
Yeah, speaking of caution, Portugal chose to sort of cautiously remove restrictions as opposed to England, which basically scrapped them all in one go. It was game on Freedom Day. How would you compare how the two countries are faring? We know they're different populations and all that, but what's the comparison that we can learn from?
Yeah, so at this stage, both countries, their hospital systems aren't overwhelmed, but in terms of case numbers, there's a huge disparity between the two. So the UK is having about 50,000 cases per day, and Portugal, it's numbering in the hundreds, completely different, even if you look at the comparative populations, Richard.
So how do you compare the health systems then? How's the UK going, and how is Portugal going as the cases rise?
So at this stage, it doesn't look like either health system is overwhelmed, but it certainly looks like Portugal is not having any strain whatsoever on its health system from COVID, which is great to see.
I think it's interesting that the change in terminology too. They're saying Portugal's going from a pandemic to where COVID is just going to be endemic. It's just going to be present in the population all the time. Is that a term that we're going to find ourselves using here before too long?
Look, I think so, Richard, because, COVID isn't going anywhere. It's likely that there are going to be new variants, not necessarily terrible variants that will appear that will mean we'll need to get adjustments with our vaccines, etc. So we will have to live with it, and there will be a degree of personal responsibility even when all the restrictions are gone. So maybe you should wear masks if you're in a crowded indoor area. Maybe you should use QR codes, wash your hands, and if...
They talk about personal responsibility, and this is something which really frustrates me, because it's something that big government or big corporation, more than anything I should say, has been putting on people since day dot. It's like back in the day before we had unions and everything. You just had to do as you would, like work wise. There was no rules. Employers could just make you do whatever the hell you want. That's why we sent children into fucking coal mines. With no care. People are just a commodity. And then you know, like this came to light. I was watching, I believe it's a web series called Adam Knows Best, or Adam Ruins Everything. It was on College Humor, and but like he goes into a couple of stories, like one being the roads. Like back in the day before cars, roads were meant for pedestrians, and then because cars came about, like when cars first came about, it was originally reported in papers, and you know the thinking was that the cars shouldn't be on the roads because the roads are for pedestrians, and you know everyone had horse and buggies and that sort of thing. It just didn't work. Kind of like bicycles on our roads now, in a sense. I just mean like size-wise, and trying to add extra, you know, vehicles onto a road system that isn't ready to handle it. But then the car companies obviously, you know, got into like paid, you know, people to sort of change the narrative, and you know that was when jaywalking became a law, and you know people weren't allowed to walk on the streets anymore. And that's what. And then, sorry, another story, you know, relating to this sort of language is that the littering. Like everyone is aware, it's been parodied. Like I don't think I ever saw it. I think I might have seen it now. But yeah, the ad where the Indian cries because someone litters on the ground. Now that ad, that whole campaign was actually paid for by some corporation who was in a lot of trouble for littering, and they changed the narrative around to people needing personal responsibility. And then, you know, to this day, we've got toxic waste dumping, we've got, like, big industry just fucking the environment, everyone. Like, this is something that the climate people, you know, people who really are pushing for, you know, net neutrality in our carbon should really be talking about as well. Because I think, you know, like, that's an indication of just how the world actually works. You know, they can talk about all this, you know, reducing your carbon footprint at home, but it's true, like I say, we are a blip when it comes to industry. And I mean, like, we drive industry for all our wants and needs, but as we all fucking know, we're in a throwaway society and we don't give a shit about that. No one thinks about manufacturing, no one thinks about, you know, how much damage you're doing by buying plastic fucking shit and all this, you know, useless nonsense sort of stuff that we put out there. You know, no one thinks about that, but it, you know, it really should be spoken about. And this, like they're saying here, is like they said, it went from pandemic to endemic, and the focus has been put on personal responsibility. But these are the people that are like forcing you to get vaccines that don't work. Or, like, you know, they probably do work, but they aren't. It's not what's being advertised. You know, we were under the impression that, you know, we'd beat this, you know, with the vaccines. But, you know, as we've gone over, the vaccine is more of a booster shot and isn't actually a vaccine. It's just an attempt to up the immune system. But, like, I think that is, you know, like, you got to pay attention to the language here, and it really worries me when they talk about this endemic stuff and having to require boosters for our vaccine rollout and all that sort of stuff, because basically what it seems to me they've done, you know, if I was to create a conspiracy theory, you know, the way that I look at it, all they've done is created a new sort of infrastructure. You know, like we've always had, you know, you've always had the health business and, you know, drugs and whatnot, but now, you know, it's, but like before now, all you had was like your flu shot that you got called in to go for. You got your vaccines while you were a kid, so, you know, you didn't get it growing up, and then, you know, you'd have to have a few shots throughout your life. Like I remember, you know, the school having like Hep vaccination and stuff at the school, you know, when I was in high school. So, you know, you go through these vaccines, like the normal ones when you're a kid, but now they're basically boosting the flu shot sort of industry, so everybody has to have it, and it will be, booster shots and all that. I really think this is just another way to milk money, create industry, basically, in an attempt, because our economy is up to shit. There's war looming, or conflict looming over us, and if I was to say anything, it would be about money. But what are you gonna do? We as a people have to be careful of it. And that's where our personal responsibility really should be lying. I think that might do us for today. Everything else seems like it's a Sunday, so it's not a great news day. But I would just like to tack on to the end here. We had an Australian legend pass overnight. The great Bert Newton has died at the age of 83. Rest in peace, Bert. Good on you, mate. Yeah, he was a TV icon in Australia for many years. Since I was born anyway. Most people know him. Like, he had a primetime show for a while, like 20 to 1, which was pretty funny. I used to watch that back when I watched TV. And any school kid of my age would know him from his daytime TV show if they ever stayed home sick and had to listen to what their mum was watching. So, rest in peace, Bert. Truly appreciate all the good times. But on that note, which unfortunately isn't a good note, but nothing I have seen today is, and on that note, lords and ladies, I am going to leave you there and go and get into me Sunday chores. I will return tomorrow, hopefully not as croaky. But I truly hope you all have a lovely day and just enjoy it. Until next time.